appreciate all you guys joining us, and probably a lot easier for everyone to do it this way rather than a bunch of individual sessions. So thank you for kind of coordinating your time here. Obviously, a really tough day for our student athletes. They work so hard, and our kids have been taking this so seriously and doing all the right things that you really hate to take this opportunity away, but it's certainly something that makes a lot of sense when you just step back and think about the bigger picture. You know, this is really centered around the student athlete for their health and safety, no matter the sport. It's just the right decision for us to make, and it's grounded in the core values of what our conference has been about for as long as I've been a part of it and around it, which is prioritizing the student athlete's well-being. And that's really what led us to this decision today by our presidents, and one that we fully support as athletic directors. I've been trying to communicate with all of our coaches over the past hour and a half, also other ADs, different groups, trying to get to student athletes. It's been a fluid situation, a lot of moving parts, but certainly going to be a long day from here still, but happy to answer any questions you guys have.
David, have you talked with any of the student athletes, and how have they taken the news?
I have not spoken directly with any yet. It's mainly been through their head coaches at this point. So I intend to have some more sessions with teams individually later today.
How much input, David, did the athletic directors have in this decision? I know it was a meeting of the university presidents, but certainly you guys play a big role.
Certainly a lot of input, and we all worked individually with our own presidents to prepare for the call that they had on Thursday, and then also the one they had today. So we were aware all along that this was a possibility. With all the presidents trying to decide about opening their campuses and how they're going to do things, athletics certainly plays a part of that, piece of that puzzle. So we were very involved in the discussions, and me, I'm the chair of the AD Council this year, so happens, and so I was very involved with the commissioner on it.
Did you see any way that they would be able to play this year at all?
I would say it goes through the way society has, right? For a little while there in June, people were optimistic, and then I think July brought back a lot of pessimistic feelings. And as we looked into August, the health and safety situation just didn't get better. A lot more questions started being asked. Our medical advisory group was very strongly in the corner of not playing. And once we heard that as ADs, and we heard them talking about not wanting their own kids to play contact sports, that pretty much hit it home for us.
That's a good question. How about parents? Have you heard from parents much about this?
We've talked to parents a lot about this throughout the summer as kids were reporting for football. And I think most of the parents were just thankful that we've placed such a priority on this. Our coaches have done an unbelievable job so far. I want to commend Coach Martin on the work he's done with his staff and his kids, because they've been running voluntary workouts and kind of the just walk-through type stuff, and they've done a fantastic job. Kids are wearing their masks all the time. They haven't been in their locker rooms yet. They've been here practicing and playing on the field, running around just like in walk-through type setting, but they have not been in their locker room yet. We set up a makeshift weight room in our indoor facility so that it could be spread out and spaced appropriately. And all of our staffs just work so hard. But at the end of the day, everyone just made the decision for their well-being that it was time to shut down fall sports.
David, I asked this fully understanding it's only been about an hour since you had a chance to digest this. But in the statement, it talks about possible opportunities for these sports in the spring semester. How viable of an idea is it to play college football in the spring?
I personally think it's very viable. I actually think it has the potential to be better for our fans than what this fall would have looked like, even if fall had happened. When you think about the attendance restrictions that are going to be in place for people that try to play, and the different issues around it, I think spring has a chance to be kind of an interesting, unique model. And I know ESPN has told the commissioner they're open to working with us to schedule games for the spring on TV. And I think it could be kind of an interesting thing. So I look forward to exploring that possibility. And we don't have a lot of details what that's going to look like yet. But I think for all of our sports, I think those kids deserve that chance to compete. If kids choose to redshirt and sit out the spring and wait for another year, we'll certainly support that decision.
And as a follow-up, and again, I ask this understanding that you are just exploring these ideas starting now, but the big concern obviously would be trying to play a college football season in the spring and then getting these guys ready to play again in the fall. And, the amount of time guys need to recover. So would the spring model be, just on the surface, just kind of spitballing here, have to be a shortened schedule just to allow these guys to have the time they need to then get ready for a fall season, which we all hope would be normal?
That has been the dialogue so far, that very concern you just raised about the number of games and then trying to turn around and open summer camp, a few months after potentially. I think a lot of it dictates on when it would start. And that certainly provides challenges in this part of the country trying to play football in February. Can we start in February? Do we need to wait and start more towards March? Those would dictate number of games, and at this point it's all fluid, and I don't have a good answer for you. I know at a minimum we want to be able to crown a Mid-American Conference champion in whatever fashion that looks like, and then go from there. Whether there happens to be some bowl games, whether that happens to be more opportunities for postseason play, that's all going to dictate what the other conferences choose to do from here.
David, I hate to ask you to speculate on what other conferences are thinking, but do you have a sense that the MAC is going to be the first of many conferences that may opt for what your conference did?
All I can tell you is just from talking to other ADs across the country that I know, some conferences are having really serious discussions like the ones we have been having. And so I think it's hard to speculate when they're going to make their decisions. I think we've all talked about kind of a game of hot potato and who's going to go first. And I don't know. I don't know what this is going to lead to. All I can focus on and all we try to stay focused on is what our medical advisors were telling us and not get too worried about the national landscape. And that's what we chose to do in the end.
So, David, athletes can continue to work out and lift and practice, I guess, on their own or supervised, or does postponing fall sports mean a complete shutdown?
I wouldn't say complete shutdown. I think on a lot of campuses it's going to be dictated by what their class situation is going to be and whether they're remote or in person and those kind of situations that are going to evolve. The NCAA has not weighed in yet. Obviously, this is pretty fluid on what we are going to be allowed to do or not allowed to do. My guess is they would give some kind of like a spring practice schedule that would exist for these sports would now be more of a fall sports practice schedule. And we'd be given a number of dates that we can practice, and each school would kind of work out when those dates are going to be. And a lot of that's going to be dictated at Miami by when is it safe to have more practices that involve higher level of contact or situations. Right now, we're just in very voluntary mode, walkthrough type settings. And so we're going to have to see how that evolves and what the NCAA weighs in on.
David, do you have concerns about seniors who may look to possibly transfer to play elsewhere in the fall or may have to leave early to prepare for professional preparation?
That's a good question. I don't want to get into the heads of our kids. I certainly, stepping back, I understand their frustrations probably about how hard they've worked to be prepared to play this year, and they're doing all the right things right now. But at the end of the day, if the parents realize we're doing this for the right reasons and respect that process, my hope is they'd stay with us and continue to want to be a part of this program for all the right reasons. With so much uncertainty around what the other conferences are going to do, I don't know how transferring right now is going to really be a forthright process for anybody to start to deal with, because I think there's a lot of questions at a lot of other places too. So, transferring just because you think you're going to play somewhere else, I don't know how they can be eligible right away. And two, I don't know how they can have any assurances that they're going to play somewhere else right now.
Yeah, I don't think other teams are prepared for a flood of transfers from conferences that have canceled their fall schedules. So I don't know if they would have enough resources for that. David, we talked weeks ago, and you were talking about how it was so gratifying for you to just see a field hockey team practicing. On a personal level, your level of disappointment at this decision, or I don't know, maybe you welcome it because at least you now have an idea of what's going to happen. How do you feel personally about all this?
It's a little bit of both those things. I'd say my heart hurts for our kids and our student athletes that are just fantastic ambassadors of this institution, and the thought of taking this away from them and the burden of being the person through the president and our discussions that we are making this decision, that's a heavy one. But it is comforting, somewhat by the fact that we're doing it for the right reasons and we're doing it centered on their health and safety. And I would certainly hope that most of them have been affected by it by now. Let's be honest. They read what's going on. They know what's happening. Their questions have been getting more prevalent, I'd say, in the last 48 hours than they were the prior 3 weeks about how are we going to keep ensuring our safety? What is the testing, time frame going to be? Is it going to be sped up? Is it going to be changed? All these different questions. So I think deep down, most of them are probably understanding the scope of what this is and why we made this decision.
I don't want to sound heartless about all this, but what kind of impact does this have economically on the athletic department?
I think it's too early to say right now, Mark. It depends on what the spring is going to look like and how things progress. We're heavily subsidized by student fees and support from the institution, and that revolves around playing games and having people be able to come to your games. And if the fall had even gone on without fans in some cases, that would have been a challenging dynamic to add to the whole mix. So I think it's really too early to tell. But if you just extrapolate this out, if you're a school like Ohio State and you're told right now you can only do 20%, what if you can do 80 in the spring? What if you can do 100 in the spring? It might actually be way better financially than doing 20 now. But all those things are going to play themselves out over time, and it's really impossible to quantify that right now. But end of the day, for us, my plan is for my staff, we're just going to have a really busy spring, running a lot of different events. And they're going to be all times of the day and days of the week, and we're getting used to that right now with the NHL and the NBA. They're playing games at all times and all days and in their bubbles, and I think that's kind of what we're going to end up doing in the spring here. And actually, it'd be kind of exciting if we can get to that point.
David, I don't envy you your job right now.
Anyone who would have wanted this job the last 8 months, I don't know. I mean, if all of you to remember, we were the first school to cancel a sporting event in the United States for COVID. We were the first school to do it back in January when we had suspected case, and it wound up being negative, but we canceled 2 basketball games in January. So we were first on that, and now the league is first on this here in the fall sports as well for FBS.